Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And today we have a 4K review, this time of one of the most epic movies I have ever watched. This is Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments from 1956. So this is a movie that I have known about, of course, for decades now. It was always on at like families' houses when I went for Easter gatherings and things like that. So I've seen bits and pieces of this here and there, but never have I sat down and watched this from beginning to end until now on 4K. I guess I'll preface this whole thing by saying that I'm not a religious person, so the story of Moses to me, watching it here, was relatively new. Obviously, I kind of get the gist, or I knew the gist of some of the things going into this just because that's the way it is. But yeah, so the full story I didn't really know, and I have no idea how accurate this is to what is written in the Bible, and I have no idea if this is even based on like a real person or not. I don't really know anything about the history behind this. All I'm going to talk about today, to try to keep that aspect out of it, is the film itself, the work that Cecil B. DeMille has done, along with his cast and crew, which was just insane. So without wasting any more time at all, let's just dive into this thing. We're going to start with an unboxing so I can show you guys kind of what is available in this package, and then we'll talk about the movie and the AV quality on this. So let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right in. So let's address first the elephant in the room, which I think like maybe 10 people will understand what I'm talking about. But finding a slipcover for this, well, first off, finding this movie in the wild was very difficult. The only store that carried it seemed to be Walmart. And if you got there later in the day when it came out, it was incredibly difficult to find. So a lot of people had to wait for like the second week that this was out in order to find it. I ended up just ordering it on Amazon and hoping for the best with the slipcover. So one, I did get the slipcover. It's gorgeous. It looks just like the cover art. I think the art in this is beautiful, but you can see it's not perfect. And that's what a lot of people have been noticing. There are some paint chips missing on this, but I mean, all things considered, you guys can see there, all things considered, it does look pretty good. So I'm not complaining too much. I wish it was in perfect shape, but you can see down the bottom down there, it's the way that these slipcovers are made. They're not made to withstand shipping. Apparently they're not made to withstand being put in those plastic carts either, because that's what we're in at all the videos I've seen at Walmart, and a lot of those were messed up as well. So yeah, fortunately I got a relatively good slipcover, but it's difficult to come by. So keep that in mind if you're searching for this. Like, you might want to get it sooner rather than later if you are one that cares about the quality of your slipcovers. But that aside, let me get this opened here. So there is the back of this one. And again, they look the same on the slip and otherwise. So this is actually a 3-disc set. So the first two here we have on Blu-ray, and this is going to be part 1 and part 2. So on the Blu-ray disc, it is broken down into both parts, and I'm sure that's because they have special features on these as well, which frankly I'm not going to talk about because this is like the same Blu-ray that was in the most recent release as well. That release did come with the 1920s version, I believe it is. The original one that Cecil B. DeMille made, which I believe is a silent film, which I've never seen that one. But unfortunately, this one does not come with that. You can see all the special features there. I will leave that up for a second so you can take a look. The only special feature that's available on the 4K disc is a commentary track. And the commentary track is on both the Blu-ray and the 4K disc. Now, this movie's nearly 4 hours long. I was not sitting through a commentary track as well, so I did not dive into the special features on this one, but I don't typically talk about those anyway when I'm doing my 4K reviews unless I've seen them. So yeah, just know that there are some special features, and the one special feature that it's referencing on this 4K disc is a commentary track. So some people like those, some people don't, but yeah, so that's what that special feature is. So that's what it looks like here. Pretty standard release, but the slipcover does look pretty nice. I really like the art that's done on there. So yeah, so let's talk about the movie itself. I won't spend much time on the plot of this movie because I'm sure that you probably already know what goes on here, but this is essentially the story of Moses, who is played by the legendary Charlton Heston. He one day discovers, first off, he's living large basically in Egypt's, like the throne of Egypt. He's a prince, but he comes to find out that he is actually the son of the Hebrew slaves, or some Hebrew slaves. And so instead of taking his position as basically the next ruler of Egypt, he decides to go back with his people and And from there, things kind of take off from there. Eventually, like, he always hears these rumors, or the Hebrew slaves have always talked of these rumors of the chosen one. And it's rumored that Moses might be that person, but he doesn't believe it. So all these events happen where he eventually believes that he is the chosen one. And so he then sets out to free these Hebrew slaves from their bondage. So that's essentially the story here in like the most like dumbed down way I can think of doing it, just for myself to understand it. So yeah, so this movie is absolutely the most epic film I think I've ever seen. I'm going to go ahead and set this down, but this is just on a scale that you do not see today. And so watching it, I was really taken aback by, regardless, or even though it was on such a large scale, how personal the first half of this movie is. Really, to me, this is a tale of two halves. Now, I will say, I don't know if that has anything to do with it at all, but I did watch this in two parts. I watched basically up until intermission, so the first part, one night, and then came back the second night and watched from intermission on, so part two. So the first part is basically Moses finding out that he is this son of these Hebrew slaves, and then basically being banished at the end of it. And then the second part is him trying to free his people. Obviously, everybody knows what the big turning point in the middle there is, with the burning bush and going into the mountains and believing that he is now a prophet of God. So that's what sends him on this journey. So like I said, this is really a tale of two halves. The first half of this movie was remarkably intimate. We are really following Moses, the woman who he believes is his mother, his love interest, who is played wonderfully by Anne Baxter. I think she just does such a remarkable job throughout this entire thing. The journey that her character takes, I think, is just fascinating. But so you have them, and then of course you have Ramses, who's played by Yul Brynner, which I've only seen Yul Brynner, at least that I remember. I've seen him in Westworld, and I thought he was okay in that, but here he does a fantastic job in this. And so I was really kind of blown away by how well he did in this role. Oh, and I was also blown away by the fact that Vincent Price is in this. I had no idea that he was in this, but he does such a like subtly creepy job in his role. It is so cool to see him in this. I don't know. He was just perfect just a perfect casting job by DeMille. But yeah, so I didn't expect to see him. So I was really happy to see that. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So you have this more intimate story of there's this like kind of love triangle that's going on because Ramses and Moses both want Nefertiti. And so you have that love triangle. We're basically trying to figure out who is going to take over Egypt once the current king or the ruler passes away. Will it be his blood son in Ramses, or will it be basically his adopted son, which is actually his nephew in Moses, or at least he believes it's his nephew. So I thought it was really well done in that respect, because you had these giant epic scenes of like these slaves literally putting up pyramids and building all these monuments for the pharaoh. Are they pharaohs? For the gods, for the kings, whatever you call them. And so like those scenes are just gigantic. I can't even imagine like what the direction must have been for Cecil DeMille doing this. Like, it's just, that's old Hollywood, and you don't get that today. Nowadays, that would be, there'd be like 20 people and then the rest would all be CGI. So I was thoroughly impressed by just the large scale of this movie, but how personal it got in the first half. And I was shocked, because I honestly did not know if I'd like this movie, given the fact that I don't really follow religion at all, and just don't really care about it, to be frank with you. So I didn't know if I would appreciate it or not. But really, the first half of the movie has very little to do with religion at all. Like, it's really just the story of Moses. It's the story of a good man. And it's basically him discovering how to be a better man and trying to make the right choices with the information that he's given. Now, does he make the right choices or not? That's up for debate. I don't know that he necessarily does, but he's doing what he thinks is right. And so watching him do that, I think, was just fascinating. Watching him meet his birth mother and his birth brother and sister, like, I thought those were really good scenes. Like, there's just so many small moments in this giant film in the first half that are done so well. So I thoroughly enjoyed the first half. I went to bed thinking, man, this is fantastic. I love this. And then I watched the second half, and while I'll admit I didn't dislike like it at all, that's when you really start getting larger. You start getting this bigger scale feel with the story, as well as kind of the shooting style and just the number of characters in this film. With the second half of this film, after intermission, Moses comes back and then the plagues hit. And I think there are some really good moments at the start of this second half, because you bring about the plagues, which brings about death, of course. And I don't know, it kind of moved the Moses character from this like righteous, good person who was just trying to do the right thing and what he, at least, what he thought was the right thing, to this more morally gray character. Is what he's doing worth the life of these other people? I guess that's up for debate. And so I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting what it does. The other thing it does in the second half is really plays with time. In the first half, it's kind of, day by day, week by week, but in the second half, you're going week by week. It feels like month by month at points. Toward the end, you like jump ahead 40 years. Like, it's crazy how they play with time in this. I think between the intermissions, you actually get about 6-year jump as well. I'm just guessing that based on what I think the age of his son was. But yeah, so there is quite a bit of time jumping in the second half, which you don't really get a lot of in the first half. A lot of the special effects come into play in the second half of the film versus the first half. And, you're going to notice them, I'll say, because they definitely show their age. Now, that said, it didn't take me out of the film at all. I was still immersed in what was going on. In the second half, I was a little less immersed. I really liked the intimate, personal story of Moses and these characters that he surrounded himself with in the first half, and you kind of lose that in the second half. You get a character who really feels holier than thou, if you will, because he believes that he is doing the work of God. He is the messenger of God. And so some of the things he does are just interesting, I guess I'll say. One moment that really struck me in the second half, and I think it was just a wonderfully directed moment, is when basically we're at the end of the plagues and Ramses says, "Fine, your people are free." Instead of Moses just saying like, "Thank you," and leaving, instead he goes on this like long monologue where he's like, "Well, it doesn't matter if you say they're free by the hand of God, not by your word." And then he turns and is walking out, bigger than life at that point, and leaving the screen, talking the entire time with his monologue. And then in the same shot, coming down the stairs, is Nefertiti, I can never say her name, the wife, Ramses' wife, with their son in her arms. And that moment is just stark and beautifully shot. It is such a great scene. Probably my favorite from that second half, if I'm being honest. Like, it is just such a wonderfully done shot. With the rest of this second half, like, I understand that they're trying to condense a lot of different plot points, I'm sure from the Bible or wherever, to get this story of Moses out there till we finally get to, the creation of the 10 Commandments and this infamous moment, right? And so because of that, you start, again, jumping in time, and you start losing a lot of those intimate moments. It just becomes big and large and epic. And so, there is a place for that, but what I was really enjoying about it was kind of the opposite of that. How, even though it was large, they could still make it personal, and you don't get that in the second half very much at all. So for me, the first half of this movie is excellent. It is so strong, and then it gets a little lesser as the second half progresses. There's kind of the scene where the slaves are, first off, one of the scenes is really cool where they pass through, like, Moses separates the sea. That's a really cool scene. I think it's done really well. Yeah, you can tell the special effects have aged a bit, but I still think it looks pretty darn cool. So that was awesome. And then when they get to like the mountain again, and Moses is going up for, I think it's like the 40 days and 40 nights thing, where he's trying to get the commandments from God. And there's that really odd scene where they're the Dathan, I guess his name is trying to turn people on Moses to get them back to Egypt so he can get basically his cushy lifestyle back. And it's just interesting, or it was just odd, I guess, how quickly everything changed and turned. And then Moses comes back and he damns them for 40 years because they had what seemed to me to be like a 40-minute party, a 30-minute party. Like, I don't know, that whole thing didn't make much sense to me. But again, I'm coming at this as someone who, I'm taking kind of the Bible aspect out of it. I don't care about that aspect of it. I care about the film itself and the story that Cecil B. DeMille is telling with the, the characters that he has here in the film. So that part was a little odd to me, but yeah, I don't know. So again, it's just that loss of intimacy was a bit disappointing to me in the second half of this film. So, it's still a good movie. Don't get me wrong. So at the end of the day, because that first half is so strong and the second half kept my attention, I wasn't quite as engaged as I was in the first half. I am going to give the 10 Commandments from 1956 4 out of 5 stars. So now that I'm sure I have offended half of my viewers, let's talk about the AV quality on this 4K disc specifically. We'll start with the audio, and frankly, I don't have too much to say. This is the same audio that is available on the Blu-ray disc and that has been in previous releases. This is a 5.1 English DTS HD master audio, if you can see that down there. So no Dolby Atmos or anything like that. And frankly, I didn't notice the audio all that much. I think it does a fine job. The dialogue is placed at the center very well. I didn't have any time or any trouble getting what was being said at all. The minor special effects that they have, the sound effects, I think are played well, but a lot of it is more focused in the front that I noticed than in the rears. So something to keep in mind. I don't think it was anything to write home about, but I think it does what it needed to do well enough that, I don't think you'll have any complaints about it. So I'm going to go ahead and give the audio quality on this 4K disc 3.5 out of 5 stars. So now let's talk about really the reason I wanted to pick this disc up, and that is for the 4K picture quality. So this does have Dolby Vision on it, so if your TV is capable of that, then you will get that extra uptick in HDR with Dolby Vision, which that's what I'm going to be talking about because that's how I watched it. And yes, this is a wonderful looking disc. There are some scenes in here that just, they legitimately look like they could have been shot within the last 10-15 years. They look amazing. Specifically, there are some shots with the ocean in the background, and it just looks like it's right there. There are some wide open, sprawling desert shots, which look amazing. With the 4K picture quality, you also are going to get some more noticeable blue screen effect, I think is what they were using in this, because at one point, I think it was, I don't forget, a character picked up a blue flag, and you kind of lost the flag in the blue screen. They picked up a different color flag and it was there. So I think it was a blue screen they're using for this. But so you do get that quite a bit, and that might take some people out of it a little bit. But, it is what it is. It's still very epic, and they do still have a ton of genuine big shots that look amazing. So yeah, to me, this is really the way to watch it just because of those sprawling shots. So on top of that, with the Dolby Vision, really where that works the best is with the costuming. This is a film that has an incredible costume design, and really the Dolby Vision helps those set pieces, those costumes really shine, and I think they just look amazing. That's really where that extra sharpness is going to come in there. Now, with that said, and keeping in mind that I do believe that this is quite a remarkable 4K disc, especially given its age. This is from 1956, so the fact that some of these scenes look like they could have been shot within the past decade or so is pretty remarkable. But I'm going to be honest with you. Is this the first disc I'm going to pull out to show off my Dolby Vision capabilities to somebody who hasn't seen it before? Honestly, probably not. While I think it is amazing, there are so many scenes in here that are either darker or just muted with muted colors. And so while I do think it's done really well, it's not really something I would use as a showcase disc. Now, I am in the minority on that. Other people look at this and they say it is kind of reference quality, top 5 4K disc of all time, things like that. So this is just my opinion, what my eyes saw. So yeah, while I do think this is a remarkable feat, how well this looks, I don't know that it's my favorite one in my collection. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking negatively about this 4K picture at all, because really it is wonderful. They do such a fantastic job with what they did with this here. The 4K picture looks great. The Dolby Vision is always an added benefit, and I'm so glad that they have this here because it just makes those costumes look that much better. And so I really enjoyed that. Just a little crispier, which is always a good thing. So yeah, so for me, I am giving the 10 Commandments for picture quality 4.5 out of 5 stars. The question I hope to answer at the end of every 4K review is this worth owning on 4K? And for me, I would say yes, it is. Now, one, because the film itself is one that everyone should see. I think anyone can enjoy it, whether you are a religious person or not. I don't think that really matters too much here. What you're getting is an epic of epics. This is just as big as they get, and it's done really, really well. Charlton Heston is just a fantastic Moses. Everybody in this does such a wonderful job. So yes, I think it's awesome to have it in the collection, but the fact that I have this now on 4K with that Dolby Vision upgrade is just kind of the cherry on top. Now, that said, is this going to be the first disc that I pull out to showcase my 4K setup to a friend? Probably not. Honestly, I would probably go for something more like Godzilla, which has an impeccable picture quality, but really the audio is there as well, which this is kind of just fine. It's okay. It does what it needs to do, but it doesn't do anything special to stand out. So while the picture quality is damn near perfect, the audio is a bit lacking to me, which again, it's not really a fault or a negative. It just is what it is. It does what it needs to do with that 5.1 track. So that's just something to keep in mind. And that's just how I view this one. So while the picture quality is great, the audio is forgettable. So I am going to give the 4K disc of 10 Commandments from 1956 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so that is going to do it for this review. And I forgot to mention at the start here, this is actually a review that was picked by you guys on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, I did do a story a week ago or so asking if you wanted me to review this one or Wonder Woman 84 and 10 Commandments one easily. So that's why I decided to talk about this one today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully you'll let me know down in the comments below if this is a disc that you've picked up or are planning to pick up, or if this is maybe one that you're planning to skip out on. Let me know what your thoughts are down in those comments below. I love having more of a conversation with you guys down there. As always, if you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a like down below and maybe consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. And if not, well, thanks for watching this one. I really do appreciate that. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, manga, video games. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, hey, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.